Believe it or not, Battlefield in general is a pretty great franchise. Since the days of Call of Duty 4, when the Call of Duty series solidified itself as this casual-friendly, small-scale deathmatch series with hit-scan weapons, small player counts, and more twitchy gameplay, the Battlefield series acted as its perfect rival franchise, instead feeling a lot more heavy in its movement, animations, and focusing on large maps, larger team sizes, and combined infantry gameplay. No kill streaks here, kids would argue in the school cafeteria. Your bullets actually drop because of gravity. In Bad Company 2, if you throw a grenade at a wall, it makes a hole. Can't do that in Modern Warfare 2. Battlefield may have lost its way in a desire to conform to rather than contrast against the likes of Call of Duty, but the Battlefield series left in 2042's wake a massive list of high-quality shooters with high production value. Today, I want to tell you about the Battlefield games I've been playing in 2022. But first, it's time to pay the bills. This video is brought to you by Vessi. Since it's getting both colder and rainier, I've been in a need for new shoes. Thankfully, Vessi has me covered. Unlike most shoe brands, Vessi is designed to be 100% waterproof. I've walked through many puddles the last few days, and each time my socks have remained as dry as ever. Thanks to the shoe's Dymatex material, they're very comfortable in all climates, whether I'm at the gym sweating up a storm, taking a walk in the cold, or begging my stubborn dog to please find a spot to pee so we can go inside for the love of God.
Please, Pumpkin, just go to the bathroom.
My feet always feel comfortable, and most importantly, they remain dry. My Vessis always stay by the front door, and thanks to them being warm in the winter and cool in the summer, I probably won't need to get a new pair of shoes for a while thanks to them. Click the link down below and use my code LateNightGaming in all caps with no spaces for $25 off each pair of adult Vessi shoes. The best part is, free shipping to Canada, the United States, Australia, and New Zealand. Thank you, Vessi, for saving my socks and for sponsoring the video. Let's start the video off with my first proper Battlefield. I have a suspicion it was also many people's first if you were late to the 1942 or Battlefield 2142 bandwagon. Back in school, it was Modern Warfare 2 versus Bad Company 2. One was the super popular Call of Duty blockbuster, and the other was this, a pretty good-looking game that snuck up on a lot of console players. It certainly snuck up on me. I still vividly remember the day being introduced to it at a friend's birthday party. His older brother was playing it, and it wasn't too long till I had my own copy. Just the mere fact that sniper bullets actually dropped after a certain distance was enough to seal the deal. Bad Company 2 is probably most remembered for its approach to map design. Essentially, all the maps feel like massive lanes, with the teams spawning on each end of the lane and trying to force each other back to their initial spawn by capturing the points. There's a heavy focus on destructible environments, with a ton of buildings being completely collapsible, as well as most walls, fences, etc. responding to your grenades, knives, and what have you. By the end of the match, most maps are completely flattened by the destruction, and it's really cool. Because of this, there's a ton of depth and strategy that comes from how you move your teams through these war-torn streets. It's more simplistic in the customization department by modern gaming standards, but what you end up with is more focused gameplay experiences. Bad Company 2 knows exactly what it wants to be. It's not a gun customization simulator. It's this block-by-block combined forces shooter. Capture those points, force the enemy back the way they came, and repel their counterattacks to win. It's really good fun all these years later. The animation quality is still top-notch, even with its adorably bouncy guns. And the art design is superb, especially the smoke, dust, and explosion effects. It can be played on PC, Xbox 360, and PS3. And if you're on the Xbox Series X, it supports auto HDR and looks fantastic. I had no problem finding matches, even when playing at weird times, and the player base is still a joy to hang out with. Now, let's move on to the big one. Probably the most popular game in the series, which says a lot because there's a lot of popular Battlefield games. Battlefield 4 is a 64-player combined arms shooter that runs at 60 frames per second and can be played on any number of consoles. What I think makes Battlefield 4 so iconic as a game is its ability to just casually deliver a military fantasy that's accessible and casual. It's not full-on Arma or even Squad, but its core gameplay has that familiar, heavy feel to it. Committing to a sprint doesn't offer a lot of strafing options, there's no cartoon slide ability, so you end up feeling the weight of your soldier as you run around. The weapons bounce and kick in ways that give the illusion of realism, and the bullet travel time ensures that you need to lead your shots at a range. It also has the most amount of weapon and kit customization in the series. At launch, a common criticism was that it had so many weapons that many of them were mechanically just reskins of each other. Here's my defense of that. So, Battlefield isn't Halo. In loadout-driven military games, typically you're not looking for variety, what you're looking for is quantity. Listen, these guns are modeled off of real weapons. They're gonna kind of feel samey outside of minor fire rate differences. So giving the player a ton of them and letting their military fan brains go nuts as they run around with some of their favorite hardware is the smart move. Look, there's countless video essays talking about Battlefield 4. The insane amount of content and unlocks the game has kept the player base playing this game for years, sometimes even outliving modern Battlefield releases. The core gameplay is solid enough that it stands the test of time, the maps are large and expansive enough, while also being designed well enough to give you this open-world adventure feel to the matches if you play it with friends. Battlefield 4 is simply brilliant. If you're tired of slip-and-slide modern shooters with insane cosmetics, twitchy gameplay, hero operators, etc., and want something that takes itself just a bit more seriously as a casual military action game, Battlefield 4 is here. It has a server browser, so no need to be at the mercy of a busted matchmaking system. Just find a match that seems cool and hop in. Battlefield 4 is still a fantastic game, both on console and on PC, and the active player base, almost a decade later, seems to agree. Now let's jump into the weirdest Battlefield game that, unfortunately, everyone forgot about. It was the last game developed by Visceral Games prior to their closure as a studio, and it was unfortunately the wrong game at the wrong time. Ditching the military theme for a cops and robbers theme, and taking the core gameplay of Battlefield 4 and simplifying it aggressively until what you get is sort of a stress-free take on Battlefield 4's design. You won't see any heavy birds with miniguns or tanks smashing through buildings. Instead, a lot of the game is on-foot gameplay through neighborhoods, Hollywood hillsides, downtown streets with black market rifles, submachine guns, shotguns, tasers, batons, etc. What I think makes the game stand out. Now, that probably sounded a bit weird for a Battlefield game, but you know what? I think it kind of works. What makes the game stand out quite a bit is how its unlock system is built more around the fantasy of using money and cash earned in matches to buy weapons, attachments, and gadgets in this digital black market. The cops and robbers each have their own exclusive set of weapons to help enforce the theme of cops who have access to higher grade stuff, while robbers make do with what they can get. But plenty of faction-neutral weapons were added via DLC. If I did have to criticize the game, I'd say the class system itself is not really well enforced. Until 2042, that is, I'd say that Hardline probably has the weakest teamwork structure in the series. Almost all of the classes promote the same sort of Call of Duty run-and-gun playstyle, with very few trade-offs in weapons and gadgets, so you'll rarely see those classic Battlefield moments where everyone is quietly fulfilling their role. Medic is reviving, support is restocking. So I love Battlefield 4, but a strength that Hardline has due to how less strict it is that if you're not used to Battlefield or find Battlefield 4 just a bit much at times, Hardline is a great way to experience that game's style but simplified to make it easier to learn. In fact, it's a shame that EA and DICE thought ripping off Modern Warfare 2019 was the best way to casualize the series with 2042, because if Hardline had a military coat of paint, this was the template they could have built off of if they wanted to appeal to a casual audience. Another criticism I need to levy at the game, however, are the visuals. Look, even back then, it wasn't great looking. It can look good at night when there's lots of specularity, but in general, Battlefield Hardline is missing something. I'm not sure if it's due to Visceral's artists just not being familiar with the Frostbite engine and how to coax some of the breathtaking cinematic stuff from it, but Hardline looks almost unfinished at times. Battlefield is a series that consistently put out artistically jaw-dropping military games, using filmic colors and techniques to make their games look better than most shooters. Hardline was the first Battlefield game that looked graphically dated compared to its competition. But that being said, Battlefield Hardline is a game that I think needed more respect than it got. The team at Visceral did a solid job on the game, and what they created was a fantastic break from the traditional Battlefield formula. And now in 2022, thanks to the server browser, it's not impossible to find games if you really look.
Took him out! That's a goddamn rocket! Hey, toss in a frag! Got him over here! Got that one!
Help this guy get the package to the drop point. Choppers en route to drop point.
Remember how I just described Battlefield Hardline as a more accessible version of Battlefield 4? Well, Battlefield 1 is basically the go-to entry game that I point to for anyone interested in playing Battlefield for the first time. Players are more durable than most Battlefield titles, and due to the randomized bullet spread system, it's harder than normal for non-snipers to land distant shots, so you'll find that you have a lot more breathing room when running around. Unlike Hardline, Battlefield 1 has one of the strictest class systems in the series, giving everyone a role to fill and rewarding you generously with XP pop-ups on the screen and sound effects to scratch that part of your brain that likes those things. You can go an entire match with no kills and only resupply assists, revives, etc., and the game will reward you like a king or queen for it. Due to the focus on class synergy, a lot of the maps in Battlefield 1 are also carefully constructed to funnel groups of players towards certain parts of the map, so no matter where you run, you'll always find a few players there, in need of ammo, health, or anti-vehicle support. It's one of the most rewarding titles to play cooperatively, and due to the time period, most weapons are rather mechanically simplistic and lack any form of attachments or perks, which again puts focus back on how you perform within the class you selected, rather than how you perform in terms of kills. What also helps Battlefield 1 be a standout game is the strength of its art direction, atmosphere, and effects. Battlefield 1 feels like a genuine work of art with the way the atmospheric music drives the combat and how the smoke from rifle fire fills the air. Battlefield 1 reminds me quite a bit of Star Wars Battlefront 2, the one from 2005. It's this casual, almost party-like game that puts a lot of focus on spectacle, atmosphere, and you play it not for nail-biting, hardcore gameplay with depthful mechanics, but for the visual and audio experience. Battlefield 1 is still a blast to play, and has definitely earned its reputation as one of the greats.
We have lost objective Edward. We have lost objective Charlie.
Battlefield 3 was a game released on the Xbox 360 generation of consoles, and was quite a juggernaut. I'd argue it was one of the first Battlefield titles to really give Call of Duty a run for its money, and it did for the most part. It was a huge success on console and onboarded a ton of fresh Battlefield fans who began to feel the fatigue of the Modern Warfare series by the time of Modern Warfare 3. It's hard to explain just how big this game was, other than to say it was the Modern Warfare 2 of the Battlefield series. Battlefield 3 is probably one of the most Hollywood-influenced titles in the series, feeling almost like a playable military action movie. The color grading, camera bob, motion blur, depth of field, lens flare may seem garish, but back then, it gave the game this incredible sense of personality and visual style. It's a visual identity that I still appreciate. You don't have a lot of spectacle shooters anymore, if that makes sense. On PC, it's plenty populated, but you'd be interested to know that the game wasn't actually designed for the 64-player PC count. It was mostly built for the console's 24-player count. X-Dice developers have said that they prefer the flow of Battlefield 3 on console, and that's where I play a lot of it. On Xbox Series X, the frame rate is locked to 30 frames per second, and the auto HDR function makes it look absolutely beautiful. Sure, 30 FPS is a tad low, but all it takes is like an hour or less to adjust and then you're golden. The most rewarding classes to play in this game I found to be the Assault class. I'm the guy who likes to fling himself into fire and keep folks alive as much as possible. Normally, I'm a support guy, but the lower player count on console means that I have a lot more breathing room to duck and dip between gunshots and keep the squad alive. Thanks to the game's server browser, it's very easy to find a match and get your Battlefield on. I find Battlefield 3 to have some of the best combat flow out of the series, the best movement set to ensure that combat doesn't get too crazy and unpredictable, and definitely some of the most cinematic visuals in the series.
We have neutralized the objective.
Battlefield 5 is a hard game to talk about because the game it launched as sort of permanently soured a lot of people's opinions, so let's ignore the launch of the game and talk about what Battlefield 5 is right now. Battlefield 5 is one of the harder Battlefield games to get into due to a lot of gameplay choices made. The suppression mechanic that the series used to use to prevent sightlines from getting locked down was completely removed, and the time to kill was dramatically increased from previous titles. Regenerating health has also been replaced with a health pack system, and the game gives all players access to field shovels and tools so that you can build trenches, set up barricades, sandbox enforcements, etc. And there's also a much heavier focus on destructible environments, with most walls, roofs, barriers, etc. coming down with a grenade or tank shot. It's a pretty intense game, mechanically speaking. Shots are coming from all directions, and with the removal of the spotting mechanic, sometimes it's pretty hard to tell where people even are. What makes Battlefield 5 a bit different from other titles in the series, though, is this focus on physicality and your soldier's body. When grenades go off, you'll be knocked on your ass. Friendly soldiers around you have complex and dynamic animations like slamming their body into cover when they get close, stumbling while sprinting, and these animations are things only your team can see. The other enemy team sees the standard predictable enemy animations so that it keeps it balanced. There's so many subtle animation quirks, both in first and in third person, that make Battlefield 5 feel great to play. It's got quite a lot to unlock too. This is no Battlefield 4, unfortunately, but there's a variety of weaponry and gadgets to work your way through, and there's a reason I have close to 300 hours logged into this game. What I will say as a con about the game is that it's not a great World War II game. Sure, it's set in the Second World War and has the weaponry, but there's Phantom of the Opera German soldiers running around, Japanese ninjas in Europe, holographic sights with customizable red dot sights on most weapons. It's a bit much. It's not as cursed as Call of Duty Vanguard, but it's enough weirdness to make you raise an eyebrow every couple of minutes during gameplay and take you out of the World War II atmosphere. Call me biased, but Battlefield 1, in spite of its gold weapon skins, machine guns everywhere, and obviously non-historical elements, still felt like there was some respect for the conflict. If gameplay is all that matters though, then Battlefield 5 has it in spades. Great class synergy, fantastic animation quality, but be warned, the gameplay is a tad on the hardcore side, so if you're looking for more than just a casual shooter, if you enjoy hardcore modes in most games, then give Battlefield 5 a try. It definitely demands a bit more attention during gameplay, and that does have its strengths, by the way.
Easy, I'll help you. Sorry for that. Where's the... Go for 6, all right?
Alright, look, I really enjoyed both Battlefield Hardline and Battlefield 5. I think it says something that even the games many in the community consider weak are still shooters that I sunk a ton of time into and enjoy. But Battlefield 2042 just isn't really good. During its development process, it was something of a hero-focused battle royale game along the lines of Apex Legends, before pivoting to something a bit more battlefieldy, without enough time to really rework maps, figure out what to do with the hero characters, and so on. So what DICE ended up with is something of a mess, and a mess is the best way I can describe the game. The maps don't feel designed for the kind of game Battlefield is supposed to be. The gunning and the class system and replacement with 10 or so of these stupid specialists who can pick whatever weapon they want, whatever gadget they want, means that teamwork and class interplay is a rarity. And beyond that, it's clear that DICE really wanted to be Call of Duty Modern Warfare. The server browser is completely gone. Now you're at the whims of the bad matchmaking system and whatever DICE wants you to play, not what the community wants to play. The classic heavy feeling that Battlefield games are known for is now completely gone, and the movement has been replaced with something more twitchy and weightless. Hey, kinda like Call of Duty. Aiming down the sights, reloading, tactical sprinting, yep, they copied all of those from Modern Warfare, and because they were so poorly hacked into the Frostbite engine instead of natively developed for it, it just constantly feels weird and unpolished in a way that's hard to describe. Even DICE's trademark excellent animation quality, it's not here. The reload and first-person animations in 2042 just don't feel that good and look kind of unpolished and janky. I get it that they're trying to copy the tactical reload animations of Modern Warfare, but they just look a lot stiffer and more robotic than even previous DICE games, which had a nice fluidity to them. And the specialists cause so many problems with the gameplay loop, and it makes it more frustrating that DICE really wants you to like these characters. I don't like them. I hate McKay and his stupid Apex Legends grappling hook. I hate Sundance and her stupid wingsuit. I hate Angel and his stupid grin that they had to patch out of the game, by the way. Speaking of which, even the visuals and art direction just aren't here. It feels sort of like the character designers, writers, and map artists worked on different planets because none of it gels coherently. Battlefield 3 had an art style and aesthetic. Battlefield 1 certainly had an art style and aesthetic, even Battlefield 5. But Battlefield 2042, it has no art direction, it has no aesthetic, nothing that makes it unique. It's just this ugly mess of random assets. If I sound salty, oh, it's because I am. The flavor of the week is salt, and I am eating a lot of it. This game really let me down. Thankfully, there are some good aspects to 2042. The best part of the game is its portal mode, which lets you play past Battlefield experiences within the 2042 game engine, as well as act as a bit of a mode editor for the community to make fun, wacky custom games. And the portal mode has a server browser, which means long after 2042 is a dead game, the portal community is how the Battlefield players are going to stick together in this game. Isn't that funny, DICE? How server browsers help small communities stay together. DICE is currently reworking the entire game as part of their live service roadmap, retroactively patching map design to feel more Battlefield-y, and even, rather embarrassingly, having to patch the art of the game. Gone are the days of Battlefield 1 where a game just has good art direction. It's not all a disaster. The new shipyard map is a blast to play, even with the specialists creating a bit of an incoherent game flow. And the work DICE has put into undoing the poor design choices made is, well, nice, but I don't think 2042 will ever reach the heights of past games. 2042 isn't the first game to begin its development as a different kind of shooter, but 2042 just feels lost, stuck in this transitionary period between the Apex Legends clone it started as and a more normal Battlefield game. And hopefully, DICE makes the next Battlefield game a real Battlefield game from the get-go. A class-based military shooter with heavy soldier movement, classes designed to support and play off each other, and destructible environments. Those are the Battlefield games I've been playing in 2022. It's pretty much all the mainline games in the last decade. Which game is your favorite in the series? Obviously, I have a ton of opinions on each of them, and I could go even further in depth in independent videos. In fact, if you're a member of my Patreon, I'd love to get some Battlefield game nights going if anyone actually has the game. I'd also like to thank the channel members, as well as those on Patreon who are paying $10 or more to support the channel. Patrons such as RoboFin117, Blake the Durg, Halagaz, Hounds of Meath, Varanith, Brendan Lowry, Savart Farmer, and Wolfric Productions. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and I hope to see you guys on the next video.